dialogue, hearings like this, collaboration, and working together on issues of such paramount importance and of such complexity like climate change are the only way that we're going to be able to tackle them. California has been a leader because the legislature and gubernatorial administrations and some businesses and others have worked together to try and craft solutions. And that is how we're going to be able to deal with the climate change challenge and make sure that we do it in a way that is helpful and beneficial to our economy and not detrimental to our economy. My former boss, Al Gore, always used to say it's a false dichotomy, it's a false question to say you have to choose between the environment and the economy. And I think that is as true today as it was when he said it many years ago. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about how PG&E, a utility that's over 100 years old, came to have such a clear and strong view on this issue of climate change and has really developed into being a real national leader on the issue. When I joined the company about 4 years ago, PG&E didn't have a position on climate change. And yet in Wall Street analyst reports and in corporate annual reports, the issue of climate change was beginning to emerge consistently as a risk to investors and a risk for our customers. And yet, as a company, we didn't have a position. Well, our CEO at the time, and our current CEO, Peter Darby, recognized the inconsistency and the problem with that and convened a series of workshops with respected academicians, scientists, business experts, economists, people whose names you would recognize. We spent days and days listening to experts on all sides of the issue of climate change. Those who believed that climate change was a challenge that we needed to address and the science established it, those who doubted the science, those who doubted that we could have a state or a national solution, that we had to wait until the full world was in agreement to deal with this issue. We listened to them all. And we came to a very strong and clear view that, in fact, the link between greenhouse gas emissions and the Earth's warming climate was convincing. The science was there, that the potential consequences were serious, not just globally, but for one utility and one utility's customers, and that the need for action was urgent. And so those three beliefs, founded on science and founded on listening to the experts and then evaluating that information ourselves, has really propelled us to take action both at the state level, to be the only investor-owned utility who supported AB 32, and to be a real leader at the national level, being a founder of the U.S. Climate Action Partnership, which is an organization of businesses and environmental organizations who are pushing very, very hard to have federal legislation that indeed does set a mandatory cap on emissions. We believe that action on climate change is not only the right thing to do, but that it can be part of a strong business model. It can be part of a strong business model that supports environmental protection and leadership, that recognizes the economic impacts of climate change, both acting on climate change and not acting on climate change, and works to mitigate those economic impacts. And also a business model that recognizes that innovation can be the key to creating jobs and transforming jobs to support a low-carbon economy. Now, some of you may have heard that we recently took action with respect to one of our friends, the U.S. Chamber, because we really had divergent opinions on the issue of climate change. We did this, took this action not lightly. We spent a lot of time thinking about it and a lot of time talking to the Chamber of Commerce. But we have actually notified the Chamber of Commerce that we would no longer be a member because of the way that they were approaching the issue of climate change. And the concern for us was that they wanted to spend time debating and talking about the science rather than trying to move the business community forward in our nation and try to figure out what are constructive solutions to this grave challenge that we face. That's what we believe we should be doing here in the state. We think that's happening here in California, and that's what we think should happen on the national and international level. Constructive engagement. Now, we believe, as I said, that this makes good business sense. And it makes good business sense because for us as a business, to have uncertainty about what the regulatory or legal framework will be with respect to this massive issue is actually a disincentive to innovation, a disincentive to creating jobs, and will actually have perverse economic consequences rather than protecting companies and businesses like PG&E. So that's why we've been so fervent in our desire to see the clear rules with respect to AB 32. It's why we supported AB 32. We knew California was going to take a leadership position on this issue, and we wanted the rules to be clearer as soon as possible. And it's why we're pushing very hard on the national level to have a cap on carbon emissions. We agree with Rob that market forces need to be a major part of how we deal with climate change. And we think that's a key answer to the kinds of economic concerns that are well-founded that have been raised by some other members of the committee. But we believe the way you craft the solution to the climate change challenge is how you deal with those economic consequences and economic concerns. We do believe that it's not going to be easy to have the right framework, but we think it's important to tackle it now, and we think it's important to look at a couple of principles. One, as we look at how to deal with climate change, we've got to look at solutions that have real results, that really actually lower carbon emissions. We have to keep cost in mind and recognize that our consumers, our citizens in California and the nation have economic concerns, and we need to be cognizant of that and recognize that as we're crafting solutions. And then we also believe here in California that we need to do it in a way that continues to carry forward our state's leadership on this issue. Economic analysis will be critical to how these solutions are crafted. We are encouraged that the ARB is working to have more robust economic analysis. We think they're doing the right thing. We hope they include in this review a comprehensive analysis of specific and proposed reduction measures. We also believe that we need to get cap and trade right. We need to make sure that it crosses multiple sectors. We need to make sure that utility consumers shouldn't shoulder all the burdens. There's a way to do this, but we need to do it right. And we need to include flexibility and price protections in the model that we create. And lastly, we need to make sure that we've got some kind of cost containment protections built into how we're going to do this. One of the things that made us very supportive of AB 32 is there is a walkaway provision, and there is some kind of provision that allows the governor, if we do have dire economic circumstances, to suspend and pull the plug for a while. I think things like that are smart. They exist. Suspending activity now rather than putting mechanisms like that into place is not the way to go. So we are encouraged by the work that's going on with the California Air Resources Board in terms of the implementation of AB 32. We're encouraged by what's happening with the California Energy Commission and its work on energy efficiency, which we think has to be the foundation of a greenhouse gas reduction plan. But it's not going to be easy, and we do need to keep our eye on the ball in terms of cost as we go through. We can do them both. We can reduce carbon emissions, and we can protect our consumers throughout the state, but we've got to be smart about it. And we think California has shown the way on so many things and can do the same thing on greenhouse gases. Thank you.